Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Manya, and this is episode 2 of my series, Take Charge. Today I want to talk to you about doing hard things. And I think that when most people think about improving their lives, they think about themselves with a perfect body that comes from eating perfect food, exercising perfectly after a perfect night of sleep, having a perfect relationship, perfect children, and a perfect life. And while those are worthwhile goals, albeit a bit unrealistic, I think we're missing a key ingredient in modern life that can make us feel a much bigger sense of accomplishment than whether we look good in a bikini. So when my 20-year marriage ended overnight, exactly 2 years ago today, I had to rebuild my life in a way that I never expected. Within a month, I moved into my own apartment, started living alone for the first time since my early 20s. And while I'm good at being alone, I'd gotten quite lazy about taking care of myself. My ex was the one who, I went to work, I made money. My ex was the one who did all the stuff at home. So for example, if we went to IKEA and we bought a piece of furniture, he would put it together. If we bought blinds, he would put them up. He did the taxes, he did the money. He took care of all of that stuff. And while that's lovely and kind and generous, it meant that I really got away from that kind of independence in my life. And by the time I was on my own, I was really worried that I wasn't capable of doing those things myself until I no longer had someone there to do those things for me. I remember that this seems small, but small things are important, and I'm going to link to my episode 1 of Take Charge, where I talk about banning the word should from your life and just doing things. I had to learn how to do things. I remember I ordered a bedside table from Amazon, and it came in a flat box. And I had never put together a piece of furniture in my life. And it's not like it was difficult. I can look back and see that it wasn't. But I really had to talk myself through putting that piece of furniture together. And in fact, I even put it together incorrectly, had to take it all apart and put it back together again. But once it was put together, I felt such a huge sense of accomplishment. There's nothing like that feeling. Along the same line, I remember setting up my computer with an external monitor, and this was something, my ex was a real tech guy, so he would always do all the tech stuff for us. And so I ended up in my apartment with a laptop, an external monitor, all these cords that had to connect to get them all to work together, and it took me like 3-4 hours to figure it out. And I remember the moment that the external monitor turned on and connected to the laptop, I kind of put my fist in the air. I was so excited that I had accomplished that. But these examples, while important for development and independence, are not exactly what I want to talk about in this episode. I've never shared this on this channel, but about 3 months after my marriage ended, I was going through a car wash and I had my first panic attack. It was one of those car washes where you actually park your car and the machine moves around you as opposed to the car driving through. And I'd been through a car wash like that a million times in my life, and for some unknown reason, that day in that car wash, I started to imagine the machine collapsing on top of me and crushing me. I pulled my seatbelt away from me, felt like it was choking me. I even unbuckled it, like I was gonna get out of the car in the middle of the cycle. And I was just in a panic, and I had no tools to get out of it because it was my very first one. At the time, I sort of dismissed it as an anomaly. But then not long after that, I was scheduled to fly to Kansas City for my cousin's wedding. And I've never liked flying. It's not my favorite thing, but I've done it since I was 6 years old. And I was fine all the way until I reached the door of the airplane, and I froze and I started to have a panic attack. And the flight attendant noticed, and he was very sweet. And he said, "Oh, honey, just step to the side, take a few breaths." He probably thought I was just afraid of flying. And I thought, okay, well, I'm wearing a mask. This is back when they were still required, and I hadn't been wearing a mask in my regular life for a long time. So I thought, okay, maybe it's just restricting my breathing, and I'm struggling. And so I took the mask down, I took some deep breaths, and I thought, okay, I'm okay. And I walked back up to the door of the plane, and I couldn't get on. And a voice in my head said to me, "If you get on this plane, you are going to die." And I turned around and I walked away. I canceled the whole trip. I didn't get on the plane. I had to cancel the rental car, the hotel. I missed my cousin's wedding. I had to tell all my friends that I was going to see there that I couldn't make it. It was incredibly embarrassing. And I remember watching the news for the plane crash. Like maybe I had a premonition. Maybe I knew something that no one else knew. And of course, the plane didn't crash. Everything was fine. It was just me reacting to an incredible amount of stress and transition in my life that I hadn't planned for. And I started to remember times in my life that I felt trapped and wanted to run. Not a big fan of crowded elevators. Like I said, I don't love to fly. I don't love crowded subway trains. I once started to panic inside a dark and crowded spin class. But it had never led to a panic attack. And that is until I found myself in the most stressful time of my life and I felt untethered. So this is what I want to talk about today. Because in that moment, as I started to have panic attacks, not on a regular basis, but they started to happen more often, I saw my life going one of two directions. One path was I indulged the panic attacks and I let them control me to the point that I become one of those people who can't do things anymore. Can't get on an airplane, can't drive over bridges, can't get in an elevator, can't go to a spin class. I saw my life becoming very, very, very small. Or the other path where I decide not to let this rule me and I figure it out. So I want to be very clear that as I chose number two, and as I said, no way is this going to rule me, I did seek some therapy, but not very much, not very much. I just decided to get over it myself. So I made myself get a car wash every single day for a while, and some of them were successful and some of them were not. And I would text my dear friend after and I would say I made it all the way through, and we would celebrate that. Or I would say I did not make it all the way through, because it turns out you can actually drive out in the middle of the cycle. So I don't know what I was panicking about. I made myself get on an airplane a couple of times, and I learned that once I'm in the air, I'm a lot better. I talked to therapists, like I said, and most importantly, I surrounded myself with people who support me through these episodes, which still happen. For example, my husband Danny has worked with airplanes his entire life, and I made him explain to me how an airplane flies. And when we fly now, every bump, every noise, he tells me what it is. And that helps. Because of him, I recently flew for 12 hours in an airplane to Japan, which is something that I had told myself in the past I couldn't do, and it really limited my travel. I've flown in a helicopter twice with him, even though it freaked me out both times. The second time I was sicker than I've ever been in my life, but it wasn't because of fear, it was motion sickness. And I've seen some really beautiful scenery because of it. So I haven't conquered this. The other day I was here in Japan, I was in a hot yoga class, and when the instructor turned off the lights at the end of class in Shavasana, if you know what that is, I've never been in a room where they turned off the lights completely. It was pitch black and hot, and I could feel the heat just pressing down on me, and I couldn't see, and I started to panic, and I talked myself through it. So it's an ongoing challenge. But why am I mentioning this? Because it doesn't really matter if you experience this same thing or not. I can almost guarantee there is something in your life that is limiting you from moving forward. Something that scares you, and so you avoid doing it. So you can avoid that emotion. Panic or fear or hatred of yourself or whatever that emotion is. So I think this is the wrong approach. And I say this as someone who is still experiencing this, who is still battling it. Because Danny and I have a phrase we use when I am struggling. We say, we can do hard things. Our lives are so comfortable these days that we can choose to do nothing hard ever. We can sit on our couch, we can drive in our cars, we can stay in the same environment we've been in our whole lives and never do anything hard, and we are bored. We're bored and we're unhappy. And as much as I do not like having panic attacks, and trust me, I do not like it, they're happening because I am doing hard things. I am stretching myself. In the middle of my life, in the moment when it would have been much easier just to stay still. I could see that path. Keep moving up in my career, buy myself a house, live in Fort Worth, Texas for the rest of my life, retire, have a great group of friends. I can see that life. There's nothing wrong with that life. But for me, that's boring. You don't have to quit your job and move to Japan to do hard things. But I want to encourage you to take charge of your life. And by doing that, you will have a sense of accomplishment. And I think you do that by doing hard things. And hard things are things that scare you. I would offer to you that your only limitation is really your mind. Your mind is going to tell you you can't, but you can. And I don't care what your hard thing is. Like I said, don't quit your job and move to Japan. That's nuts. Go to that exercise class you've been wanting to go to. Join the dating app that you've been too scared to join. Go to that restaurant and try something weird, some weird food you've never tried before. Trust me, I'm trying a lot of weird food. I know that I am stronger than my mind and that my mind wants to lead me down a safe path. But safe to my mind is not what is truly safe. So I tell myself I can do hard things, and then I make myself do them, even when they scare me, because life is worth living. What's a hard thing for you? What's a hard thing that you're going to try now that you're thinking about it, or that you're not sure you're ready to try? I want to know. Put it in the comments below. This has been episode 2 of Take Charge. Remember, you can do hard things. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.